Greetings. I'm happy to be part of the Elevating Women's Voices campaign at the Women's Resource Center. My name is Scott Osbourne. Elevating Voices is about using your voice to make a difference. It's about using your voice and your vote to make an impact on the issues that are important. But before we actually talk about what we want to elevate our voices for what ends or what issues, I want to talk about this idea of voice, where it comes from and what that means. By saying women's voices and all of us knowing what that means, that assumes there's something different about women's voices. It assumes we have a basket of behaviors and attitudes as women that colors what and how we say things, or perhaps don't say things. And that's what we're going to look at today, that gender socialization, what it means in our culture to be raised as a woman or a man, and how that affects our voice and our agency. I'm a gender equality advocate and a gender researcher, so I'm going to try to boil down a very big topic into about 15 minutes that are most useful, and I think it will really help us all think about using our voices. First, two quick notes. I'm going to be talking about some norms and generalizations about how women are raised and how men are raised. Obviously, these are generalizations. We all know exceptions. None of us are those exact stereotypes, but these are very well documented generalizations that are important to understand. The second note is I will be talking about men and women and not non-binary people. I think that's a very interesting conversation. It's very important, but this is really about traditional socialization, and I think it's good to get that foundation. So let's dive in. First, we are products of our society. That means we live in a very gender unequal world. The lives of men and women are frequently different because of the culture and how it approaches gender, not our biology, but our society. Let's look first at a couple of social conditions. The gender pay gap in the US hasn't changed much in 2 decades. Many of you are familiar with the statistic that women make perhaps 80 cents on the dollar in the US. We know that men control much of the economy as far as CEOs of corporations. The world's global billionaires are overwhelmingly men. This is very commonly cited that the gender pay gap is really different. It's really hard for women. One of the reasons has to do with motherhood, but there are other reasons as well. But let's just accept that the economy does not work as well for women at the moment. Another statistic, men have about double the retirement savings of women. This big blue bar is about the retirement savings for men. The white bar on the left is for women. And this is average annual median retirement in 2021. This shows what's called the wealth gap. The wealth gap is even greater than the income gap. So poverty in old age is really a women's issue. That's very important to know. Women don't have the same kind of savings. So that affects their perceptions in the economy. What about politics? This shows women's representation in parliament, or in our case, in the House and Senate and elected government. There's 8 countries. We're the dark blue line at the bottom, the heavy, thick blue line. It's sort of teal. We're on the bottom, but don't focus on that at the moment. Look at the scale on the left. We're not even up to 25%. What this shows is that women are overwhelmingly not politically represented. And we know our political bodies make the laws that really govern our lives. So again, women are not really well represented in politics. Men are overwhelmingly there. Here's another indicator. Suicide by gender. In the US, this is overwhelmingly, again, a male issue. The male bar is at the top in dark blue. The female is in green at the bottom. This is not to criticize men, far from it. This is a serious social issue. So I sometimes say to people, how are we raising our boys that they're so much more likely to commit suicide? This is a real social factor. We're doing something to how we raise our boys and men to produce these kind of byproducts. Next, violence. The red bars are men, the green bars are women. This is violent crime perpetrated by gender. As you will see pretty clearly, this type of crime is overwhelmingly a male issue. This is a really social issue of importance. So you might say, what's going on here? What are we doing to our boys to create these kind of behaviors that's so skewed by gender? Again, we're going to see where this comes from and why this is important for us in a few minutes. Here's another indicator. The care economy. This is something, again, where we're very unequal in our society, as well as other societies, I would say. The care economy is both the formal economy, our nurses, sometimes we're considered our teachers, our elder care, overwhelmingly female. Up to 80% of all caregivers, formal and informal, are female. If they're paid, they tend to be low status and low pay. Unpaid, globally, women do twice as much caregiving. So let's think about that. The implications are that women are the social caretakers at home and at work. Where does this come from? How is it that women got all this work? And what are the opportunity costs of this? Well, all of these inequities, and there are many more, you might say, where do they come from? And here's why the socialization becomes important. I used to say that they come from birth, but now I think I have to go back and say they come from before birth because of the popularity of gender reveal parties. Gender reveal parties serve no function except to tell people basically how to code their behavior toward a boy or a girl. Think about what that means. That means we're assigning a whole bunch of behaviors and choices based strictly on the gender. So all of this socialization is very early. We have a tsunami of pink and blue for children. Children are like sponges. They absorb things way before they can articulate these preferences. They are absorbing behavior patterns. So all of this is from well-documented statistics. By age 3, boys and girls will conform to socially dictated masculine and feminine behavior. You can ask young children about preference for a toy or an activity. They'll choose a wide range of things. But then if you ask them what you think their mother or father wants them to choose, they will almost always choose the gender conforming toy or activity. So they have picked up, this is what society expects of me. By first grade, internalized sexism already is documented, especially in girls who will sometimes say they feel less smart. They'll identify with particular types of products. They might be referred to as tomboys if they're a little bit masculine. Boys who are a little bit feminine will already be referred to as sissies. So children start policing this behavior very early. By second grade, girls sometimes report they feel they cannot speak freely because of gender stereotyping. Second grade. 40% of 9 and 10-year-old girls, that's third, fourth, fifth grade maybe, say they want to be thinner. Look what they've already internalized. By first and second grade, boys have learned that they are supposed to play what's called a dominant role in social groupings. They might not say this to you in their words, they're only first and second grade, but you can observe it in classrooms, in boy behavior. You'll see it with groups of boys who have what's called dominance play. So sometimes physically try to see who can dominate. They have absorbed that this is part of what it means to be a boy and eventually a man. There was a very large study in 2017 of early adolescence in 15 countries, and the results of that showed that children throughout the world believe that boys are mostly stronger, natural-born leaders, and that girls' best asset is their appearance. So everything that they're absorbing from childhood on leads in these directions. It mostly comes from 4 places, and this is family and parents. There's a whole bunch of gender coding that parents and families apply. It comes from their peers. Again, their peers will pick it up and cross police with each other. Stay in your gender roles is what they will often show. It comes from teachers in school settings, and it comes from the environment, toys, media, everything else that they're aware of. So it comes from many, many sources. For example, if you do a search for boys' toys in many places, this is the kind of thing you get. Think about what that says about what boys like to do, what they play with. We assume this is biology, but this is how we have been treating them since very, very early. If you do a search for girls' toys, you get something like this. So again, think about what that says to girls about their values. They have learned that these boxes apply. So all of our children know that we have these boxes, act like a man, act like a woman. This is what they have been coded to figure out how to do. Let's summarize what are in these boxes, because I think it will give you a lot of insights into voice and agency. Men absorb that to be a man is to be dominant. It's to be superior in group settings. They learn to suppress their emotions, except anger. Anger is an acceptable male emotion. Think about all the movies and superheroes and all that you see. Perceived vulnerabilities should not be shown, or they may struggle to articulate perceived vulnerabilities. It's important to be smart and independent and strong and take risks. Risk-taking behavior is coded as more masculine for boys. If you're a man, you should avoid the feminine. Don't act like a girl is an age-old insult. So that's very important. It disparages things that are feminine. Boys learn that sporting and muscular behavior and sexual prowess, whether it's real or just talked about, is important. They'll learn that behaviors seen as others by risky confers higher status. They absorb that women are less valuable. Women and girls, what are they observing? What do they pick up it means to act like a woman? I bet many of you females listening to this could tell me in a minute. Women absorb that the most important thing for them is their appearance, their clothes, often their body language, their hair, makeup, whatever it is. Appearance, 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 still to this day. So again, think about what that says about having voice, having agency. Women also absorb that they're vulnerable. They need protection by men. They learn that sexuality is owned by men and boys, that that's a male and boy prerogative, and they're submissive. They learn to shrink to permit male dominance. Again, you see this in group settings in young children's classrooms, that boys will start to dominate and girls will start to check themselves. They sort of start to self-censor. Girls also learn that the social responsibilities of the household are theirs. You still see in families that have boys and girls that if they do chores, boys will still be asked to do things like take out the garbage. Girls will still be asked to care for young children, to care for siblings, do cooking work. You will still see this in families. So girls absorb that there are certain responsibilities that are theirs and certain responsibilities that belong to boys. So this is the templating that we have all gotten. There's maybe exceptions, but you have absorbed this in general since you were a child. It's like the mother's milk of our culture and many other cultures. These gender expectations shape everything. They shape our academic performance, our career choices, home life, relationships, and children. Often we perpetuate these roles. It shapes our health, our appearance and behaviors. We've talked about that. Our friends, our hobbies, and it shifts our voice and agency. This whole basket, this whole social construct that we have absorbed now gets channeled into how do we want to use our voice? Can we speak up for things? Can we self-advocate? Can we confront others who might not agree with us? How do we work with other women and with other men? All of that has been absorbed through so much of these social interactions for years and years and years. So let's return and sum up. Before we get to talk about how we want to use our voices, let's remember that we have been socialized to use our voices or not for many, many years. I would say probably all of our lives. There's nothing inherently wrong with absorbing norms in society, except when it's not how we want and need to live. So it's very important to realize that we are not alone in this, that this is part of our culture. We also think that we can help the next generation by being more aware of this. So in later workshops, in addition to going into detail about some of these and answering some questions, we're going to talk about what actually to do, how men might see this as well, how we can help the next generation, how we can speak up, even if others don't support us. So that's all coming up. And finally, today, to go back to voice, we have more resources. I have a website, it's under my name. There are gender equality resources of all kinds. We also run a film festival that focuses on media and gender equality. So there's many, many resources that are available, and I would encourage you all to take a look at those and come back while we go into this in more detail. Thank you very much.